All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, Rich Prado, owner of Play in School. Today we're heading down to Marietta, Georgia to visit with Chance Beam from Titans Baseball and Titans Sports Academy. Chance, how you doing, man?
Hey, man. No, I'm doing great. It's an honor to be here, so I appreciate you taking the time for me today.
Well, your name came up several times in a recent interview with Jacob from Southeast Sox. I would assume we'll talk a little bit about that in a little later in the call, but he mentioned your name enough times. I figured, well, let's go ahead and get you on the show too.
No, that's awesome.
Now, you and I got to speak a little bit last week, and so this isn't our first ever conversation, but for a lot of people who might not know who you are or what your background is, could you kind of walk us back through your history and then catch us up from where you started to where you are today in a short version?
Sure, absolutely. So I tell people all the time, Titan Sports Academy, kind of what I'm doing is I call it the great accident, in that I'd never really had any great intention of, hey, I want to own a baseball academy and do all these kind of things that we've been so blessed to be able to do. But probably like many of your listeners and players and coaches, I don't really feel like I chose baseball. I feel like it chose me, and I really didn't have a choice throughout my life. Obviously, played baseball, played collegiately, played a little independent league, got into college baseball, did that for about 2 or 3 years, and then I kind of was looking at the land and looking at college coaches. I'm like, man, these guys are starving. God bless college coaches. They truly sacrifice for what the coaching at the college level. And I was like, I just don't know if I want to do that. So I said, hey, I'm going to move to Georgia. I'm going to get a teaching job. They pay really good at teachers. I did that for about 6 weeks and realized if I had to do that for the next 30 years, I would be probably taking a long walk off a short pier. I just didn't feel like that was the right fit for me. And again, God bless the coaches out there that are doing that. They have the patience of a saint, but wasn't the right fit for me. So I got into mortgage and banking. My family was in mortgage and banking, and I had my MBA when I was at Tennessee. And so I was used to looking at things from a business background. My mother, my sister, my uncle, my aunt, my stepdad, everybody was in mortgage banking. So I got into that, and if you guys recall, if you're old as I am, then in 2008, 2009, there was this kind of mortgage crisis happen. Well, I was making well over six figures, and I lost 97% of my income in 6 months. And so I've got a wife and 2 kids at the time, and you start to look around and going, oh, crap, I got to figure out something to do. I got to pay the bills. And so at that time, I was at East Cobb, and so I'd started East Cobb Baseball Academy. I was building websites, credit card, merchant services, anything you could think of to make ends meet. And thank God that I was able to kind of make it work with the East Cobb Baseball Academy. And then we broke off from East Cobb in 2013, and I really do cherish my time at East Cobb. Learned a lot from the time that I was there, and kind of fast forward now to 2023. Been doing it 10 years on our own as Titan Sports Academy, and been very blessed with incredible players and families and coaches and just people that have been part of our program and helped elevate and continue to grow our cause and what we've been doing.
That is a very succinct breakdown of probably a major portion of your adult life. So pretty good. We're going to dive into a couple pieces and parts of that. It's actually kind of funny. As I'm listening, I felt some parallels within my own life where you think you're going to do something not baseball related, and you go do it, and then all of a sudden you get sucked back in like a giant magnet, which is awesome. But you ended up having a like a suit and tie kind of job with this.
Well, yeah, I was suit and tie and all the high rises downtown every day, and battling traffic. And then at that time I was coaching and calling on clients in mortgage banking because I was doing on the commercial side. And so I would go to a 9 a.m. game and go somewhere, buddies, friends I know, grab a shower, get my suit and tie on, and go make my calls the rest of the afternoon. And thank goodness I was in sales, so nobody really cared. As long as you hit your numbers, nobody would mess with you. But it was some hectic days for sure.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man. There's, I think if there might be one person out there listening who who maybe wants to make the leap. They're still wearing their suit and tie. You've been through a rough economic downturn. To be honest, I started playing school in 2008. My simple, unsolicited advice to that one person who's listening: hang on to that day job a little longer than you think you need to. You know what I mean? Make sure things are stable, and that way, when you're ready, and then you make the leap. Because going out there on your own can be tough. But your first non-suit and tie gig was over at one of the perennial powers in travel baseball over there at East Cobb Academy. One of the OG granddaddies of the whole thing. What are some of the major positive takeaways that you walked away when you went to start your own thing?
I think that's a really good point. Is that when I came along, there wasn't nearly it was 2003, so the travel baseball world was obviously very different than it was now. And I used to tell people all the time, I'm at a big church just trying to wave people into my classroom, right? Mm-hmm. I knew that, people are there for a myriad of reasons. And so one of the biggest things I took away from my time there was, there was an expectation of excellence, and you didn't have to apologize for, hey, we're aspiring to win a national championship. That was, that was the standard. And, the interesting part of that was I came along and it was the Astros were the number one team at the age groups. And then over time, we as Titans kind of became I guess you would quote unquote, the number two team at the age groups. And so, I didn't, look at that as a slight. I looked at that as a badge of honor. I was going to be able to take the guys that they looked at that weren't good enough on their team, and yet I was still either going to win a national championship or compete against those guys and win against those guys. And for a long time, it was pretty cool going to a banquet every year and you won another national championship, and and you were able to rub elbows with the big boys and against and with those guys. So I'd say that's probably my biggest takeaway of creating a championship culture is done from day one of everything that you do. And I think, now obviously over in travel baseball, East Cobb, everything's changed since then. But I'd say from my very first days there, it was pretty well said. And, the circles that I ran in is, hey, we're going to play at a national level and we're not going to apologize for anybody for aspiring to do so.
It is amazing when you're used to winning, even if it wasn't you, the player, but when the organization is used to winning, it becomes ingrained in you. It's just like part of you. It reminds me, I just saw, so we're recording this last day of May 2023. The selection show for the regionals just happened, this past weekend, past couple of days. And they show a lot of these teams, they live stream all this stuff now, and some teams are sitting on the edge of their seat, right? Some of these college programs maybe haven't been there, and they had a good year, and they're kind of a bubble team, and they get in, their name is called, and they just go bananas. And the funniest thing came up. Somebody posted a picture of UVA, and they're just hanging out. They're just eating barbecue, just casual, relaxed. I mean, they know they're in. And the selection show is not a big deal to them. They're just, you know what I mean? So it's a totally different thing when it's like been there, done that. Versus.
Well, and I think one of the things that one of the kind of cool things that happened kind of by accident is that the very first year in 2003, when we ordered our uniforms, long story short, I'm a Tennessee fan, and for some odd reason our colors are royal and orange. And when I opened those boxes that first year, all I could see was Florida colors, and I thought my head was going to explode. And they were supposed to be navy and orange. I can remember just like yesterday, I was sitting with Gary at the time, 2003 at East Cobb, and I said, well, I don't want to be the burnt orange. I'll be regular orange. But I had on a navy shirt, and I can remember saying, I want to be this color blue. So he wrote blue. Well, of course, it came back royal and orange, and my head exploded thinking it was, Florida colors. But long and short of it, I had ordered a pinstripe jersey top that first year in 2003. Literally, my 17-year-old team still has that jersey. Not a replica, the same exact jersey. And I tell those guys, we only break that out for national championships. We've only wore that jersey 10 times. We've won a national championship 9 times. When you put on that jersey, you're not just you anymore. You're putting on a legacy of the 10 other guys that have wore that jersey. There's a big difference between the team that thinks they can win and knows they can win.
Exactly.
And I think that's probably one of those early things that I really started to figure out. I was like, guys, we've already put all the foundation. We've laid everything out. This is just another game for us. Don't try to do anything more. Go do what we do every day. And you don't have to be the best team in the country, as the old Lou Holtz statement. You don't have to be the best team in the country. You only have to be the best team in the stadium today. And it's funny watching those teams kind of almost take a deep breath, like, oh, okay, well, he just put that in perspective. Let's go out and do our thing. And so it's really to see, especially in today's age, 16, 17-year-old kids get giddy about wearing a jersey. And the other thing is it's 20 years old at this point, so it means a lot more than just a piece of fabric.
I'm actually on your website looking at that jersey as we speak. Those of you at home, you can go to titansnation.net, and from there you can connect with Chance. And I'm on I think I'm on the contact page, and there you guys are in pinstripes with Titans across the chest. And that's a pretty cool story. Hearing those things are so old.
And so, like, when we were getting ready to play in that national championship game, whenever it's been, I'll always post it on social media. Hey, Titans national championship game. Guess what we're wearing today? Titans wear pinstripes for championship games. And the now old guys that are, they've got wife and kids that'll jump on there and kind of rooting us on or jump online and watch the game. It's really, really cool to kind of feel that community behind these guys.
So when we spoke last week, you had a quote that it was just perfect. You said something to the effect that in the travel baseball world, you're in the Silicon Valley of the travel baseball world. Comparing that to the to the tech world of Northern California, Silicon Valley. Now, I mean, Georgia is chock full of talent. But then when you begin to sort of zoom in a little bit and you get to the Atlanta metro area, and then you zoom in, you get to that Marietta, and that comes with a little bit of cachet. Can you talk about how you deal with just the amount of talent? This is like Facebook going against Twitter, going against Instagram, going against the Snapchat, all for the same eyeballs, the same users, the same dollars. Like how do you wake up? What's your plan of attack when you get up and you know that just down the street are other teams that are just they're also going to be wearing their jerseys on championship days, just like you.
Yeah, and so it's one of those situations where I think even after doing this for 20 years, every day you kind of wake up with a sense of urgency. And as I tell people, you may be winning one day, but you're not going to win every day. And you have to play more in the infinite game with a sense of urgency, which is daunting. I tell young coaches that come in, it's like, hey, keep up. And they kind of look at me like, dude, you're 20 years older than me. Of course I can keep up. And I'm like, no, you may. Yes, but here's the thing. It's running a sprint and a marathon all at once. So, for example, with my 17-year-old Rangers team, which, obviously with respect to the guys up the street and down the street and all over town, I mean, we're incredibly talented. I mean, I'll name off a couple guys, Braxton Wade, Bryson Thacker, let's see, Clinton Harris, let's see, Drew Sofield, and let's see what we got here. Roger Dreher. We've got Taylor Penn. I just named all 7 names that are all 91 or better, and they're 17 years old.
Yeah, on one roster.
On one roster, yeah. Right? And and are we one of the top teams in the country? I don't know, but I guess we'll sort that out as the summer goes. But and the thing of it is that you go up the street and down the street, they're going to have the same thing. And I think I had a friend in town this past weekend, and they're from Tennessee, and they always like to come watch us play. And they're just like, when they come watch us play or these other teams around this area play, they're just picking up their jaws, because it's like, I've got 5 kids on my team that are 6'5" or better, and they're 17. I'm not a small guy, and I mean, you can't even find my head when we stand in the huddle. And so my father, who's always said he always knows your teams are going to be pretty good when you guys stand together. And I can't see you, then I know that you're probably going to have a pretty good group.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of a boiler room, if you will, with the community and with the teams and the guys and the players and development. I know that we're probably the little engine that could in comparison to some of the others, but I know that we have kind of punched our flag in the map, if you will, and we're just kind of holding on, and we've continued to just grow and develop and really focusing on our players is, I think, more than anything, is what's kind of kept us there.
Now, you do mention development, and you see a couple different sort of approaches to travel baseball these days, where you're getting the one organization might have guys from all over the map. You know what I mean? And that, which is fine. Cool, good for them. Hard to practice like that, right? And then you get other types of clubs that are all from within the same community. We're kind of on that spectrum. Where do you guys fall in that spectrum?
I think that, like, on our national team, so for example, our Ranger Scout team, we've got guys from 7 different states, with the predominant, probably 50% or greater of the roster is from here. But on all of our other teams, we're all local. I mean, everybody's from hour and a half away, and we're going to have the practices 1-2 times a week. We're going to have hitting sessions, defense, field times, and that type of thing.
And
so I would say.
That was exactly going to be my next question, was not only do you have the teams, and there's kind of 2 camps on the team side too. You got the teams that are just teams, and then you have the teams that are a part of a facility, which you guys, you obviously have. So you're bringing them in a couple times a week. They're getting reps in. They're working out not only indoors, but you also have a field, don't you?
Yeah, so we have a field out back that's a U-size field, but we also have exclusive contract with North Cobb High School. We also rent, I think at one point in time, we go from Lake Point, North Cobb, Kennesaw Mountain. We have ATP, Kell, Sprayberry, some of the other county parks and fields. I mean, I think we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 different fields that we're renting throughout the year to make sure everybody's getting the proper amount of field time.
That's awesome. Having the ability to get reps. I mean, when people start throwing around the word development, you go, okay, well that comes with, kind of like practice and stuff. So, yeah. so I like that you're doing that. That's pretty important. How, in this day and age, in 2023, you say about half of that top roster comes from 7 different states. Are they calling you, or are you calling them? Sort of, what's the approach on that?
It's a little bit of a combination of both, being honest with you. I think that, we are going to look within our program to fill out those rosters to begin with, and there's always going to be spots and places that we need, or looking for certain needs. To your point, is the great thing is we're in the Silicon Valley of baseball. Mm-hmm. The negative is you're in Silicon Valley of baseball, so there's only so many those top-end great players around. So you have to kind of go out to be able to compete at that level. As hear people say, you can't take a donkey to the Derby. So we've got to be able to have some of those thoroughbreds that can go out and couple those with our really, really good players to be able to kind of get us to be able to compete at that level. So for example, on our 16s and 17s especially, a couple of things that really helped us is the development that we've done with players over time. Being able to be successful at national level, is going to allow you to either people to call us or for people to return our phone calls. Not to mention that we've been very, very blessed. We've had 950 kids go and play, or 850 kids go and play college professional baseball. We got, current, 4 or 5 current big leaguers, Nathaniel Lowe and the kid from Sprayberry, that was a first rounder with the Red Sox, a few years ago. Both those guys are currently in big leagues. They were on the same 14-year-old team that I coached. And, the funny thing is that you had 2 guys that are current big leaguers on the same team, and everybody would assume you win every single game. They were nice players. They're really good players, but we didn't win every single game. And so, that idea that people have in their mind of what big leaguers are and the reality is just not the same. I refute the idea that all the heroes and champions of life have already been chosen and you're not it, right? I just refute that idea. And so, that's why we have an academy. That's why I believe in development, because it's, you go out, you grind, you work, you bust your tail, you pay the rent for success, and over time, it's all going to come out in the wash. But, the guy, I've seen very, very, very few players that were the very best kid at 16 that was the very best kid at 26.
Yeah. And go, you take that same exact statement and say 12-year-old and 18-year-old.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Very, very few times. Absolutely. These 12-year-old teams that are put together that are national teams, I wish that you could go back and say where they are now when they're 16 and 17, and there'll be a lot of those kids are either not playing or hurt. God bless them. And I'm seeing guys that are being abused at those younger age groups because they throw 80 by 13, and they're having to have Tommy John by 15. I mean, it's just frustrating.
And the reality is, boys grow a lot at different ages, and so you might have a kid who's the best player in the world at 12. He's a little bigger than everybody, a little stronger than everybody, but by the time he's 16, everybody caught up to him or passed him. Speaking of young kids, I'm checking out your site now. You looks like you go down to about 9U, which is an absolute just blessing when you're talking about trying to have a sustained level of success. If you can put a good product on the field and show them a good time, show them, that they're getting better and the moms and dads are happy, then you can hopefully retain a ton of these kids from 9 all the way through 18. Can you just talk about how a little bit about the strategy of keeping them in house for as long as possible?
Sure. And I think for us, like I'm on my 17-year-old team right now, I've got 4 or 5 guys on my 17-year-old national scout team, Ranger scout team, that have been in the program since they were like 9, right? And I'm a big advocate for those guys, but also I think that's a testament to, what they've done for us and also we've done for them.
That's right.
In that they've, believed in the program and we've been good to them and shown them the way to kind of go about it. And so the younger age groups, our mantra is really 11 and younger as, hey, we want to win, but we're going to have a good time. I don't want to see people playing 17 weekends in a row. We kind of step in and say, hey, guys, parents, this is what you should expect. And if you're not getting this from your coaches, we need to know. One of the little things we do is we actually send out organizationally, we'll send out an email every week, and every week it'll say, all right, here's what a practice should look like. This is what some mental, help as far as, kind of helping people with what is your approach at the plate? This is what it should look like, right? And helping our parents give them some guidance. So, for example, if they go to practice, and we've all seen it, where they got the coach standing out in the middle of the field, one guy is hitting and everybody else is standing around.
Yeah.
Well, that's not really highest and best use of your time. That's not development. That's we're not doing that. And so we put out those practice plans because it does a couple things. One, we're putting out the content that as an academy we're giving good information, and this is what a practice should look like. The coaches then see that, and they may say, you know what, that's not right for my 9-year-old team, but hey, I can use this one drill or something like that. But then the parents can also look at that, and if they're seeing these emails come out every week, and that 9, 10, 11-year-old team has got the one coach sending out balls, throwing them out in the middle of the field, then they can go to the coach and be like, Coach, why aren't we just doing this? The organization's sending out these messages weekly. And so it holds that coach accountable. It holds parents accountable because the coach can say, well, I could do that, but we only have 5 guys coming to practice. You guys aren't showing up, right? And so there's a lot of accountability that goes on there from all sides, right? And us as an organization framework, our job is to deliver a product and a framework for the coaches to flesh out at the best that they can. Now, under 11 and 12, 9, 10, 11, let's have a good time. Let's learn. I don't want the shortstop being the cutoff for everybody. Let's do cutoffs and relays like we should, even though it may not be best for your team. I know I go see some of these quote-unquote elite teams, and the shortstop cutting the ball off from right field, and it makes it's like, what are you doing? You're not teaching the kid anything. You're just trying to put the best athlete in the best spot all the time. And then, at 12 to 13 and 14, it really starts for us, becomes a developmental phase where we institute lessons and we really start to practice teams together and starting to get more of our professional coaches involved. And then at 13 and 14 especially, we're talking about let's pave a pathway to help them make their high school team. So we're really talking about attitude and effort and what does that mean and how do I apply that to a practice? And, wearing your uniform right matters because you're, as a player, trying to impress a bunch of old dudes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then at the high school level, well, we've made our high school team, hopefully, and if we haven't, let's figure out what we need to do that. But also, let's be the best player on our high school team, and let's compete for all regions. Because the reality is, if you aspire to play at the college level, you're going to have to be in the top 5%, 7% of the players out in the country. So now you got to be the best one in your school. You got to be the best one, at least one of the top players in your county. If you're one of the top players in your county around here, you're a pretty good player.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then going that route. So what we try to do is we call it a kind of a walkway or a pathway to success, to graduation, and hopefully that next step past graduation is into a college program. And then when you get to that college program, you have a foundation to work on to understand, hey, this is how a practice will look like. These are going to be the expectations. If you're 5 minutes early or 10 minutes late really means something at that level, but you've been doing that since you're 13, so it's old hat.
Yeah, that's good. I tell you what, I think the more an organization can train their parents and players in communication, the better. Like just doing what I've done for so long. Sometimes I need to get a message to a team, to moms and dads and players, and I can tell you instantly which coaches, which organizations have the eyeballs of their players and parents, because they can send one note and everybody gets it, versus the opposite, versus the coach who can't get anybody to return their emails. And so when you're out there and they know they're expecting that email each week, boom, you're training them. And then that communication's a two-way street. So if somebody has, a recommendation or a question, boom, they can hit you right back. Which is awesome. One of the things I definitely wanted to bring back up, we mentioned Jacob Cagle, Southeast Sox, earlier today. He was on a podcast just a few weeks back. If anybody wants to go track that down, you can, depending on where you're listening, just scroll up a little bit or go to playinschool.com/Cagle, and you'll find that episode. But the Southeast Sox are now sort of underneath of your umbrella. Can you kind of, he explained it just a little bit, but can you go in and explain it sort of from your perspective and, talk about what you're doing there a little bit?
Sure. Jacob does an incredible job, and, his name just kept coming up in conversations through, last year or so before they came over. And as I said before, I alluded to that, I had my MBA and come from a business background. And so one of those things, when you're good with a hammer, every problem is a nail. Yeah. That could be a good problem and a bad thing. And so, obviously as an organization, we'd reached a point in time that we wanted to grow and expand. And as we were going through that process, you're talking to, organizations that, love their logo or doing a nice job, but, hey, I just don't know if I want to, go down that route of having to go to another organization. But, hey, I appreciate this call. And that's kind of what I would get. And as I was talking to Jacob, along with other folks, I kept kind of getting that. And I said, well, okay, well, hold on a second. We have Titan Sports Academy as an umbrella. We have our nonprofit, which is Once a Titan, Always a Titan, which is a nonprofit that all of our teams function within. Well, what if you just kept your name, but then we kind of ran your business back in? And, that's kind of the part that I'm really good at because of my background in business, is that, the scheduling the fields and payroll and QuickBooks and invoicing and insurance and all that business stuff that nobody really wants to talk about. You talk to a lot of baseball coaches and they're like, Coach, I just want to coach. I don't want to have to I don't want to have to think about collections and invoices. And so, we started that about a year and a half ago. and Jacob and some other folks who came on board, and it's really been great for them as kind of the founder of their smaller organization. I think Jacob had 4 teams when he came over, and then this next year he's looking to expand to probably 7. So we've got Southeast Sox, we have Wahoo's baseball that's here out of Kennesaw area as well. We have Stars Fast Pitch, and we've got another 2 or 3 that we're in conversations with. And as of right now, with our Titans baseball teams, we have a location here. We also have another location in Villa Rica, Georgia, which is just west of Atlanta. With Titans baseball, Southeast Sox, Stars Fast Pitch, Wahoo's, with just those number of teams, we'll be at probably just north of 50 teams starting in August.
Wow.
So it's been a great opportunity for those guys, and I think what we've been able to do is through our economies of scale, I've been able to help them be more profitable. And one of the things that's really been really cool is that our nonprofit is actually going to purchase a car that we're going to be raffling off starting. We're going to kick that off on August 2nd. What's cool about that is that the raffle tickets that are sold throughout all of those organizations, 100% of those proceeds are kept by the player going towards their team fees or tournament fees or whatnot. And because we can use this economies of scale, we're just, the nonprofit's just paying for the car.
That's pretty cool. Gosh, I've brought it up so many times on this podcast with different coaches. The idea of fundraising in travel baseball, honestly, it's like some people have crushed it, but mostly it doesn't seem like it has caught on. And you mentioned Stars Fast Pitch. I know you're getting into a little bit of softball these days, but I've been tracking softball for a pretty long time. I mean, my best friend's older sisters were doing travel softball in the sort of version of what we're seeing now in the baseball world. They were doing it in the 90s on the softball side. So they're light years ahead of us. And one of the things I always sort of picked up from them is that, man, they fundraise. They fundraise like crazy. The parents simply, they don't come out of pocket the way the baseball community does. And I'm thinking, man, maybe softball's 20 years ahead of us on this road. Maybe we'll get to some fundraising eventually in this because the knock is always that it's so expensive. And I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be,
No, exactly. And that's kind of reason why we really like this concept, because it allows typically what we see, and we roughly have about 500 members now in the organization, is that the youth teams are usually your biggest gangbusters of going out and fundraising and things of that nature. As kids start to get a little older, parents, for whatever reason, or just burn out or whatever, they're just like, whatever, I'll just pay the amount.
Yeah, that's right.
What doing it this way allows for us to do is, if you've got one kid on a 17-year-old team that really, hey, you're telling me I get to basically get the benefit from 100% of the ticket sales that I sell, absolutely. And you got 2 kids on that 17-year-old team that want to sell raffle tickets, have at it. The whole team doesn't have to do it. And then at, say, 12, and I tell people at 12, it's kind of like the black hole, especially if you're going to Cooperstown, because you've got Cooperstown that's roughly $1,900 for 1 week. Right? And it is a rite of passage for a 12-year-old boy. It's absolutely incredible, but not to mention tournaments are more expensive, the year's longer. I mean, so the ticket price can get pretty heavy for those 12-year-old kids. And doing this, I think, will really, really allow us to be able to really help our families. And those that want to participate, they literally can raise and cancel out their fees by doing this. So it's something that we're really excited about.
That's cool. Well, and the other piece, I don't want to glaze over too much. This is a question I ask all the time. I always wonder, you get these organizations who are really good at the baseball piece, and I don't mean the on the field piece. I mean the administrative stuff, the behind the scenes. And I go, well, if you can do, tryouts and registrations and scheduling practice and logistics of fields and complexes and scheduling tournaments, well, couldn't you do that for softball or lacrosse or, Like, but here you are. You've got your soccer. Not soccer. You've got your softball team. When did you bring softball into the mix, and give us a little bit about the the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Sure. No, I have two daughters, and
that explains it.
God is fair. He didn't give me any boys; he gave me girls. It's what I needed, it's not what I wanted. But I have two girls, and I love them to death, and they both have kind of been bitten by the softball bug. And so obviously having a baseball organization, like, hey, I got to have something for my girls to participate in, and so on. No, they've gotten in the softball world. Both of those are playing travel ball. Again, talking about softball being a little ahead of baseball, the recruiting rules for softball. So to answer your question, we started softball probably about 7 years ago. And it was kind of funny because, on the baseball side, I've been around for 20 years. So you don't realize it, but you have kind of the wind at your back. Mm-hmm. You have tryouts, people show up. You have teams, you can kind of bank on it. That's what's going to happen because you've been kind of a household name and been able to grow and develop players. But on the softball side, we were the new kid in town. Yeah. And all of a sudden you're having to fight the 800-pound gorillas of the big organizations that have been around for a while. And so that was a bit of an eye-opening experience. And so going through that, I think this next year we're going to have 12 fast pitch. We're targeting 15, but I think that pretty comfortably we'll have 12 fast pitch teams this past year. The funny thing of it is that the teams do function a lot of the same way. Obviously, the game on the field looks like baseball, but it's very, very different. Man, sure. It couldn't be any more pitcher dominant. You got one pitcher, you can play with anybody in the country.
That's right.
On any day. But from the business side, it's very close. I mean, I think that I would say in my experience, a little bit of softball, as parents are, a little more price sensitive. Mm-hmm. The fundraising is a bigger effort with those guys, the parents involved, and which is great. And I think the things that we're doing will be helpful for them. But one of the things that softball did a few years ago is they changed their recruiting rules, and we're seeing it now in baseball, where now you can't have any of those conversations till September 1 of your junior year. And so I have a daughter who's a sophomore. So, when she was in 8th grade under the old rules, she would have been committed. Thank goodness they passed those rules because, an 8th grader can't remember to clean up the room, much less, make a life decision where you're going to go to school. So through that process, kind of to your point of softball being ahead of baseball, they made that rule change a couple years ago. Now we're seeing it with baseball. And what I've seen on the softball side, the camps, what we call the showcases, the individual showcases are absolutely paramount for those girls because, you can go to the major tournaments or whatnot, but they really can't have any conversations with you. Mm-hmm. Where if you go to their camp or you go to the showcase where a college is working, they can start to talk to you, form a relationship or whatnot. And because when this rule came down for baseball here a few months ago, Jacob, to his credit, and with my history with the softball, said, hey, I've seen what this did to softball. The showcases, the camps where we can have college coaches on the field with players is going to be even more crucial than ever before. And so this summer, we're going to have 5 different showcases. We'll have one at Mercer. We'll have one at Clemson. Yeah. 2 at Reinhardt and in Georgia State. So, again, using that softball world and kind of going back to the baseball and kind of learning some lessons from those ladies.
The teams I've seen, the softball teams I've seen, boy, I almost don't even want to say this because some of the baseball people go crazy. What fundraising has the potential to do. I worked with a softball team out of Virginia Beach. It was a big organization, but their top team would fly everywhere they went. They'd fly to 5 events a summer. They would travel as a team in style all over the country, Vegas, Colorado, Texas, wherever. Mom and Dad would come out of pocket $350 for the year. and it, it's like, how'd they do it? Well, they hosted their own tournament. I think they did that twice a year. They ran one golf fundraiser, which I got mixed emotions about. I don't know if those things are I think those things are boondoggles. I don't know if they're super efficient from a fundraising standpoint. Anyway, and then they would do bingo. They would host. Mm-hmm. They would run the bingo hall with all the little blue hair ladies. every 50 weeks a year, I think, or 45 weeks a year. But which is work. It required effort. It required not just kids' effort, but mom and dad's effort. But man, it just left such an impression on me. But again, it's looks the same on the field, right? It's a round ball. It's a glove and a bat and some cleats and home plate and a pitcher's mound. But it's a different contest, man. It really is. And watching it, I mean, gosh, I tell you, I think you go watch a little bit of softball, especially now when the college softball tournament's coming on here in a couple days. You can understand why Major League Baseball is working so hard to speed the game up on the baseball side, because you can turn on a softball game and it's done in about an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 15 minutes sometimes. And it's awesome. I mean, it's a fun game, especially.
It's a great game.
You get two good pitchers going against each other.
Level, yeah, and again, my oldest daughter, she's pretty good. I think she's arguably, whatever you want to say, one of the top 40 players in the country, and they just had a thing came out, and I think she was ranked like 38, 39th.
Oh, dang!
She was frustrated. She was like, "I'm better than that girl. I'm better than that girl." I was like, "You know what? Part of me says, honey, you got champagne problems if you're worried about that." The second part, I go, you know what? As a coach, it fires me up that she's ticked off about this. She's not ranked higher, right?
That's right.
As an elite athlete, that's how you have to be wired. And
yeah.
So, watching those level of tournaments, she played on a USA team out in Oklahoma. We played at Colorado, like you talked about. She played at in California with the PGF. She went to Taiwan and played, and we've done some really, really cool things. And it is a blast to watch the high-level girls, how fast the game is. It's no joke. It is no joke.
Yeah, that's wild. At the end of the day, to bring this topic full circle, I'm impressed that you are running softball. You can assume it was a result of having a couple of daughters instead of having a couple of sons. But it's cool that you're doing it. So few do, and it really does shock me that in the same sort of idea that you're bringing in teams like the Southeast Sox, just sort of underneath of your umbrella, it's a little bit surprising to me that we're not seeing more of the baseball. Maybe not just the baseball absorbing softball, but it could be the other way around, right?
Sure. I think that the biggest thing of it is that understanding your audience. The softball people they want to have their own thing, meaning they don't want to feel like they're sharing baseball, anything with baseball or underneath baseball. And that was a learning curve for me as well. And so like right now I have a director that handles softball. That was a former college coach, Janice Savage. She was head coach at Appalachian State, came from us when she was a junior college coach, and she runs softball, her along with Angie Bill, who really started softball for us. And Angie's kind of now moving into a general manager role with us. But those two ladies have been integral in helping us kind of do the softball thing. And I've learned over time is like I need to have someone. They can't have a baseball guy that's running softball, right? You got to have. They have to have their own thing.
Where the efficiencies come in is now you don't need two separate accountants. Well, you can have, you know what I mean? You can have the back offices can share space, so to speak, which is where you're picking up the efficiencies. I want to work towards wrapping up because we're almost to the top of the hour, and I've got to get rolling because I got to get my boy from school here soon. But I've been poking around on your website just a little bit, and I actually want to bring attention to one thing. If I can tell people where to find it again. While I'm looking for where it is, I'll say what it is. It's a PDF that you have linked on your website, Preventing Child Sexual Abuse with Youth Serving Organizations. I want to point anybody who's listening, go find this document on the website. I think was it on the contact page? Not on the contact page. Now I've lost where I found it. Maybe on the there was it's regardless, poke around on the Titans website, find this document. I just want to highlight, I actually just went through a training through my son's school that if you want to volunteer at the school, you have to go through a mandatory sexual abuse training. And, as a parent of a 7-year-old, going through that it's quite the eye-opening event. And there's a lot of things that, quite frankly, I would have had no idea about. But it definitely makes you.
What you're talking about is Titans Nation. If you go to that About Us, you go down to, there's a drop down that says Child Safety.
That's it. About Us, and then go to Child Safety. That's it. Yep. So just click on the little hamburger, the menu. Click on About, and click on Child Safety. There's another PDF there for concussion protocol, but there's a preventing child sexual abuse, and I highly recommend every single coach, every single parent. It's good. Something like this can take you just a few minutes to speed read through, but it's gonna open up some eyes. I'm glad you have that on there for your families and coaches to see, and I just wanted to make note of that here. On a lighter note, I definitely wanted to make sure I hit on one of the sort of standard questions that I send out to every single coach, and it'll be the last one on that list. The one question is going to be, what one change do you think could be made to travel baseball that would have the biggest positive impact?
Wow, you talk about a deep question. That's an onion that you just start peeling back. And when I saw you sent me that question, I was like, holy cow, you're asking like for world peace kind of thing. And the thing that I kept coming back to is all of the arguments that we have about travel baseball are honestly self-imposed. So, for example, you could be mad at Perfect Game. Perfect Game charges too much for their tournaments. Okay, well, everybody stop playing them. Well, they're not going to do that because it's basically the parents have been kind of in their mind, hey, we got to play in this event.
Of course.
PBR, same thing. Well, and then it says, well, maybe it's the organizations. The organizations charge too much. Well, okay, well, we have costs and people we got to pay and fields and insurance and all. And so all of these things kind of, it's the standard arguments or issues that people have with travel baseball. And I think one of the things that then they say, well, what about the coaches? Maybe there's too low a barrier of entry for coaches. Well, do you really want some kind of organization in on that? And then, well, here's a better question. Like, who's monitoring me or people like me? So if we'll say I've had a sketchy past, or maybe somebody's been arrested, and God bless, I know a lot of people make some mistakes in life, but at the same time, who's doing the background check on that guy to make sure that he's only up and up when he starts an organization? Right? So there's all these things that kind of came to mind, like how do we prevent all these things? And the only thing that I could really come up with, and I think that you're going to have the only way that I think that you really start to corral in a lot of these things is Major League Baseball has to become more involved with youth and amateur baseball, much like NHL has done with their NHL youth hockey and some of the leagues that go there, where you can kind of go from one level to another level, but it's within an NHL guidelines. Just because I think one of the things that Major League Baseball says that it wants to do, it wants to get younger with its viewership. It's got an aging population of people. Well, I would say that Major League Baseball has done a very poor job of reaching out to the youth community. I know that they have some initiatives, RBI and some of the others, but on a grandiose scale, other than scouts coming to games and that type of thing, they really, there's the East Coast Pro that's happening over the East Coast today, but I mean, that's for the best of the best. What about little Johnny that just loves baseball that's going to go nowhere? He's not going to play college baseball. How do we create a system? And I think that is the only way that you have a power that's big enough and strong enough that can dictate to the masses what's going to happen. I think at the lower levels, I just don't know if you say, all right, well, Perfect Game does this or PBR does this. Even if they do that or USA Baseball does that, I just don't know that it's going to force enough change that it's really going to be one thing that would change everything for the positive in the entire travel baseball world.
I love the answer. I've got lots of responses, but before I give you some of my thoughts on this, I'll ask you the question: do you think MLB would do this? Do you think they will get involved with sort of our space?
I don't think so. I think because to do it, they're going to have to do it on such a scale that's going to cost a lot of money, time, infrastructure, and all of those things. I think even for MLB to get involved, it would be somewhat cost prohibitive. Now, maybe they get to a place where they just kind of feel like they have to. I don't know. In talking to some of the pro people I talk to, they go, we're going to stay in our lane. Youth baseball is youth baseball. We've got scouts and those guys. We do enough. But I just don't know if they feel like there's really a need yet.
Your comparison to the NHL and youth hockey is appropriate at a 30,000-foot view. The difference is there's so few youth hockey players that they're basically grooming the next NHL stars, right? That's similar to USA Baseball. And Major League Baseball doesn't necessarily have a huge ROI in helping a 12-year-old who's not going to become the next Mike Trout. They want to groom the best of the best. Now,
because the argument is that 12-year-old that's not going to be the best of the best, he's going to watch TV.
He's going to watch. That's right.
He's going to buy a ticket. He's going to buy a beer when he's 28 and take his buddies to the game. He's going to take his daughter to the game when he's 35, right? Yeah. And so I think that's where they're being short-sighted of not reaching out to these young people, because these young people later become adults, and they're the ones that buy the tickets and watch the TV and so on. And so I think that's where they're being a little short-sighted of saying, well, that kid's never going to play in the big leagues. Well, no, he's not. But you know what he is going to do? He's
become a customer. He's going to become a customer.
And there's a lot more of those people than there are the guy that's going to be the next Mike Trout.
I think they can woo the younger age groups without dropping billions, because that's what it would take to overhaul all youth sports across the nation. For example, here's a pet peeve of mine. Maybe don't start a playoff game at 8:35 Eastern time.
Truth in that.
Maybe if you want kids to watch, start the games when kids can actually watch. It's little things like that are pretty simple. I know they struggled with their social media. They struggle with really advocating for their best guys. Like I can't tell you I know what Mike Trout's voice sounds like. Not sure I've ever heard him talk.
Point.
Right? Why not? The MLB should be kind of putting him and putting guys like him in our face the same way some of the other professional leagues put their top stars. I don't know. I think I had other thoughts on that, but I've lost it. Anyway, man, this has been fun. Do you have any sort of final, if anybody's still listening besides, my mom, maybe somebody, your wife, are there any final kind of parting words that if any coach, kid, mom, dad is still listening, anything about the Titans that you want to make sure you share, get off your chest, or anything about anything before we wrap up?
I think one of the questions that you had kind of sent me was kind of like, what was one book that anybody or a new coach could read?
Yeah.
One of the things that I'll share with you it really kind of opened my eyes is there's a book called Little Red Book of Talent. I tell anybody to read that book. It's an easy read. It's a small little hardback book. Get it near Barnes & Nobles, wherever. I don't get any royalties for any of that, but it's a great book that teaches people how to teach and teaches people how to learn. Little Red Book of Talent.
Man, I'm glad you shared that. Yeah, because we definitely skipped over a couple of those. I'm looking at. I see 1, There's a lot. There's like a whole series of Little Red Book of blank. I see little book of talent by Daniel Coyle.
Yep.
But then I also see, if anybody's interested, I see Little Red Book of selling, and I see Little Red Book of sales answers. So this is a whole series of another Little Red I don't know if that's related. Anyway, that's cool, man. I might order this before we even hang up the phone. Chance, I appreciate you coming on. I'll get this up. This will be at playinschool.com/beam here in the not too distant future. I tell you what, don't hang up. We'll end the recording here, but don't hang up. I'm going to hang on one more second.